I'm going to shut up now because there's really no point in talking since this video is going to get taken down anyway.
Hard Rock Lunchbox.
Oh man, what is up, ladies and gentlemen? How is everybody today? It's time for a new episode of the Hard Rock Lunchbox, and I have an overwhelming feeling that I am forgetting to do something, so I'm just going to take a pre-flight check for a moment, if that's cool with all you guys. I'm logged into the chat. I am logged into the system. I have started the show. I played Patrick. The video for the top 20 is going, and I guess that's everything. All right, good job. See you next week, everybody. That's probably actually all I can say without getting in trouble from YouTube, so we're going to get to that in a minute. So, I guess I'm going to have to go with, I'm a little surprised, but happy that the top 20 came out today. All right, yeah. Granted, it's a heavily edited version of this week's top 20. I am actually going to release last week's top 20 at some point. I just have to go through and edit about all of it and blame YouTube for why I'm editing it, but that's not such a big deal. If anybody wants a direct link to last week's top 20, I can just give it to them and they can watch it there, but I'll be putting it out probably. It'll be like the lost episode of the top 20, and I'll put that out. Mainly because I've done all the work. I just have to go in and edit and cut stuff out. If you watch this week's top 20, you'll see I just edit out basically anything having anything to do with anything related, because I was already on the fence about keeping doing the top 20, and I don't need any more pushback from YouTube or Google in their shit answers, by the way, in terms of appeal. But like I said, we'll get to that in a little while. Let's do a little housekeeping, shall we? I wrote up some notes for what was going on, but I don't really remember. So last week, oh, you're right. So the top 20 is out today. It is the top 20 from last week's Hard Rock Lunchbox. I talk about will they or won't they have a show on Saturday? Well, the answer is in. And they won't. Yeah, we did not have a show on Saturday. It is the first show I think I remember having canceled for winter. And to be honest, I did not cancel the show. The venue canceled the show. I would have played. I do realize it was probably dangerous to do so, as I was out there shoveling on Saturday, but the venue went ahead and canceled it as early as Friday, which I thought was really, really surprising, but might have had something to do with states of emergency in Nassau County. Excuse me. I wasn't told. I have been asked about a few rescheduled dates. So far, the 2 dates I've been giving will not work for us. They offered us something in the middle of April, but we're already playing locally in April, and I don't like to double up if I can avoid it. And then the other one was like the Saturday of Memorial Day weekend, and I was like, no thanks, I don't want to do that one, so I'm not gonna. So maybe we'll get something in June or mid-May, but I'll have to keep you posted. We are planning on rescheduling the show. Like I said, it's Kaz's bar, Kaz's home bar, and he likes playing there. Sorry, don't mind me. I'm just stretching because my back is bothering me, and sometimes I forget. I'm actually on TV. Yeah, all right. So that was there, and I do talk about some of the stuff that was going on with Google and YouTube, and last week I did, in the top 20, I did say that I thought it was just a bot and it would just be resolved kind of quickly. That did not happen. In fact, it's an ongoing argument. I don't even know that YouTube knows they're in the middle of this fight with me, but I know. And that's cool. Like, Davey and Goliath was a thing for a reason, and if I have to be Davey, then that's fine. YouTube can beat Goliath, but again, I keep alluding to it, but I will get to it in a minute. Let me talk about other stuff that's going on in the world. Yeah, I don't have anything else. Strangerhood TV, I know there's a new interview out. I watched the interview with V from the After Hours review, and pop punk takeout. It's a good interview. V's an interesting person, local celebrity, I guess would be the word for it. She's always got her fingers in a lot of things, and that's always kind of cool when you see somebody kind of up and coming with that kind of time and energy to do stuff. Those are usually people to watch, and I always find them interesting. So it's a good interview. I, for the life of me, cannot remember who today's or last night's 7 questions is, so I apologize for that. I'll try to be more prepared next week. But that's that. So, as I said, I had a fight with Google and YouTube. They have removed not this week's top 20, but last week's top 20. They removed it for violating community standards vis-a-vis medical misinformation. And as I said last week on the show, I had looked through their medical misinformation or their community standards, medical misinformation policy. I read through there, and I rewatched the video, and I did not find anything. As promised, I went through the video again with all that information with me, and I noted absolutely every single time I mentioned anything about or anything like that, and I wrote it down, and I wrote an actual appeal. And I don't know if anybody cares, but I thought it might be interesting if I read it, because I do have it. This is my appeal, my well-crafted, strongly written appeal to YouTube. And it basically goes like this. Dear Mr. Tube. Not really. I respectfully disagree with YouTube's assertion that the video, quote, the top 20, number 58, DJ gets Facebook lowest honor, in any way violated any community standards vis-a-vis medical misinformation. As a strong and consistent supporter of the CDC, NIH, WHO, and the New York State Department of Health, I can assure you that I've done nothing in this program that contradicts any consensus of those expert bodies. In fact, I would argue that all I've done is enhance the clarification of those concepts with examples so that your general audience can better understand them. Now, there's a slight dig at your general YouTube audience, and the reason I put a slight dig at the general YouTube audience is because, actually I should be quoting general, the general YouTube audience is because the general YouTube audience is, no offense to anybody that watches YouTube all the time, there is such a thing as a bell curve, and if you're on the smart end, that's fine, and of course you are, and if you're listening to this show, this is probably where you are, but we're making fun of these people over here, and it's okay if you're worried that I'm making fun of them. They're probably not smart enough to understand it. Anyway, for example, for example, at 2:30, I make a reference to the situation that occurred in March of 2020, where a venue was cleaned wall to wall with bleach because it was all anyone knew to do at the time, and as per the CDC, it turns out that indeed bleach is an effective cleaner. And then I cite any household cleaner containing bleach or at least 70% alcohol should kill. At 4:30, I correctly state that the WHO has warned which are in summer now and will soon be in fall and winter. Also, Dr. Fauci has just said that the, quote, provide examples. At 5:40, I do the same thing. At 7:05, you can better and more quickly defend against an attack. It doesn't mean you don't get it. As per the CDC, quote, that is on the CDC website. And I realize just by saying this again, YouTube's probably going to yank this down again, which sucks. So this whole part, I'll just be able to say whatever I want because this is going to be a big screen that just says YouTube has taken this down, blah, 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 because they suck. 10:45, I wrote, and are not a wall. And they are not designed to be walls. Again, as per the CDC. I'm skipping a lot because this is going to get boring and it's going to get edited out anyway. At 11:45 in the program, I say the only thing that is not backed up by the CDC, and that is the assertion that, quote, I say this is clearly comedy, and I actually say this is clearly comedy, although possibly not to a true comic book enthusiast. Enthusiast, read, nerd, and no serious review of this content would find that it violates anything, especially since, once again, as per the CDC, even Spider-Man, apparently. And that information is backed up by the CDC. So I end it with this. I could certainly keep going, but at this point I have demonstrated there has been no violation of the community standards for medical misinformation, and it is now appropriate for you, Google and YouTube, to provide just what it is you find to be a violation of your own medical information guidelines, and I will be happy to address it. Otherwise, I expect you to reinstate the video at your earliest convenience. And I would also suggest that YouTube initiate a closer look at its review process in order to keep from hindering and harassing its creator community that it says it cares so much about. Hang on. For a fact. There we go. Also, an apology for this egregious show of bad judgment and bad faith on the part of YouTube and Google would not be underappreciated. P.S. Just FYI, there are still plenty of Joe Rogan videos on YouTube right now and plenty of others just like him, which is why your CEO just received a letter from, quote, more than 80 fact-checking organizations calling on YouTube to address what they say is rampant misinformation on the platform. That's 2 weeks ago in Fortune magazine. These videos on and your platform are loaded with bad science and misinformation, unlike the top 20. Yes, thank you very much. So I went to go submit that as an appeal, and it turns out you only get 800 characters to submit an appeal. So I shortened that down to exactly 800 on the nose, submitted it, and within 24 hours, YouTube rejected my appeal, saying that I indeed violated medical misinformation community standards policy, which, again, I did not. I then took to Twitter, tweeted Team YouTube. You can see it under the Revel 9 account. You can see my information, and you can see their response, which says they'll elevate it and take a look at it. And then within a day, they said, nope, it turns out that you violated this. And I asked specifically for a specific example. And I point out that it would actually be ridiculous for them because I have cited Dr. Fauci and the NIH and WHO and the CDC, and I said that they wouldn't really be contradicting that information, because if they contradict the information that's on the top 20 as basically laid out by the CDC, that would be a violation of their community standards on Mr. Tube has yet to answer that particular one. I also took to the YouTube community forum and posted the rest of my letter here and my appeal and stuff like that. I have not heard from anybody on that, so I don't really know what to do. And the reason I'm even engaging in any of this is twofold, right? Well, threefold, right? First of all, it's Jimmy's channel. It's Craving Strange's channel, and I feel bad for that, because the next time there is a warning or there is a violation of something, which, honestly, I can't imagine anybody's going to violate community standards except me. I mean, Bacon is my podcast is probably not going to be touching upon stuff like that would do that, although they could. I mean, I guess I could seriously see them interviewing like some, wannabe rock guy or, some up-and-coming wrestler that has very strong opinions about I think Mike and Jimmy are smart enough to just sort of keep it off that path, but they could, certainly talk to a comedian or something. I mean, Joe Rogan is just flagrantly just lying about stuff all the time, and that's what's causing the big Spotify thing, if you've noticed that on social media. And I don't even have a problem with Joe Rogan. As I said last time, like, I feel like he's free to talk about his opinion. He is not an expert at all. He says he's not an expert. He's a comedian. He has a popular podcast, and he's just talking about stuff out in the world, which is effectively all I'm doing. The problem is that my information that I'm using is backed up by actual science, and the information that he's using is ridiculous. Don't forget, Joe Rogan played a barely electrician in news radio, so he's not an expert in anything except maybe duct tape. He's still funny, though. I do find him funny. Sorry, shoot me. But, so yeah, it's Craving Strange's channel, and I feel horrible about that, because if they get another strike, then they can't even post videos, I think, for a week. I forget exactly what it was. But I don't want to be the first ticket in a, I don't want to be the first strike in a 3 strikes you're out kind of plan. So that's one. Two, I thought it would be interesting for people. The basis of this whole show, the whole Hard Rock Lunchbox, the whole basis of this show was that sort of peek behind the curtain into what goes on with bands and stuff, maybe stuff that people aren't actually doing, right? Like, most people that listen to this show aren't in touring and working bands, so whenever I used to talk about, like, well, this happened and this happened and this happened, like, it was interesting for them, right? That's why this show exists, because they wanted to know those things. They wanted to be kind of fly on the wall in those things. Well, now I'm telling you, as somebody that's an active broadcaster and podcaster, I mean, it's not the highest rated podcasting thing or highest viewed thing, the top 20, but it is something that's actually genuine and something that most people that listen to me listen to every week, and it just got smacked down by one of the biggest entities on the planet, which would be Google and YouTube, because they just felt like knocking it down, and they don't even feel like doing the actual work to say, this is the problem, and this is what you did wrong. Nope, we just don't like what you said. You mentioned the word, and so you're out. I defy anybody to find where I violated anything at all. Although I will say, I did message Mikey and Jimmy the other day telling them I was putting up an edited version of the top 20 just to be safe. And I did point out that my theory still stands, that Jimmy G is the one that turned me in because I mentioned that Spider-Man might actually have this particular weakness. And the only answer I got back was, don't disrespect Spider-Man, DJ. And so I don't want to go full conspiracy theory here, but, like, where was Jimmy G at 12:05 the morning that video came out? Like, does anybody know? I'm not saying that Jimmy G had something to do it, but I'm also not saying that Jimmy G didn't have something to do with it. That's kind of where I stand on that. So, and the third reason is me. Honestly, me and the way that I'm wired, for whatever reason, either by genetic, nature, nurture, growing up, the way I was raised, I have a tremendously difficult time letting go of things that I perceive as wrong. Anybody that's known me in music and in anything else has known that I have a very, very hard time basically just shutting up and not saying something when something is wrong. It has put me in more bad places than I would like to have been, but it also allows me to stand pretty tall and pretty strong on whatever rock I choose to die on, because by the time I get involved in an argument with some entity or some person about what has been done that's incorrect, if it rises to the level where I actually engage, 99 times out of 100, I am on solid footing and I am correct in that argument. And very few times have I been in a situation where somebody has convinced me otherwise. And this is not to go all Adam ruins everything. People hold on to their firm beliefs. I am not somebody like that. I have my beliefs, and I have trouble getting out of the way of them sometimes in the face of new evidence, but I do love to learn, and so I do love to evolve, and, I have examples of exactly that. But generally speaking, if I'm going to pick a fight with something that's gone wrong, something that's gone on that I deem wrong, it's because it's wrong, and it's incorrect, and it's not fair, and it's unjust, or some of those things. And to be perfectly frank, what is happening here is completely wrong, it's unjust, and it's unfair. I understand why Google and YouTube have to have community standards and policies, it's because of the world we live in, because there are people that are actually trying to be authoritative and saying this, that, and the other thing are true, and they are misinforming this great swath of American society, and that is dangerous. Like, history has told us, if history taught us anything, it's that misinformation and propaganda are dangerous. Mainly because a big portion of the population are not smart enough to know better. And I'm not trying to be insulting. That is statistically and statistically accurate. That is what they have found. That is how most dictators and most fascists have come to power. If you want to watch some really interesting stuff on how Mussolini and Hitler came to power using exactly those things, feel free to check out, I'm drawing a blank. It's also on YouTube. It's actually really great content. Man, I have the shirt around here somewhere. It'll come back to me. But just, honestly, just read a book, and you'll find out how that worked. You'll find out how misinformation and propaganda worked in Russia, worked in Germany, worked in Italy. Like, this is what it does. And it's literally what has gone on in our country. Misinformation, it is what is driving still to this day the theories and thoughts and ridiculous connotations that somehow the 2020 election was stolen. It wasn't. And they've proved it over and over and over again. They've recounted, they've had affidavits, they've had counsels. The lawyers that brought the suit on behalf of the Trump organization were not only dismissed, but they were fined, and they were told that they had to go back to school, basically, because they had egregiously wasted the court's time. This is a proven fact that there was no stealing of the election. There was no measurable election fraud, and yet people still believe it because people are using misinformation. And they're telling people things that they think, and they're like, oh, well, that person says it, so now that's two of us, it must be true. And the same thing is going on with, because, like, I don't trust the government, I don't trust this other thing, so this must be true. Because Joe Rogan said it, or Fox News said it, or some expert doctor that you never heard of and never will again has said it. Like, that's how misinformation works. And it is a brilliant campaign. When they talk about, like, the cyber stuff going on, those are all misinformation campaigns. People creating these fake social media accounts to basically flood social media with fake information because it jives with what you think, and now you have proof because you saw it on Facebook. I got to tell you, if you see it on Facebook, that is not proof. That's why if you're doing, like, a high school paper still, you can't cite social media sources. You want to know why? Because it's not proof. It's really just that simple. So I understand why Google and YouTube have to do that, because they're trying to protect the masses. But the reality of it is they aren't trying to protect the masses. They're in danger of becoming legally liable for promoting stuff on their platforms that's not true and is dangerous. That's the catch, and that's the rub. So they are trying to get out of a legal bind by just blanketing over all this information. So even if you say something that's 100% true and backed up by the CDC, they don't care. They really don't. And they have every right to just knock you off their platform. And that's exactly what happened. They pulled an episode of this show that 7 people were going to watch to protect their community. Do you really think we're trying to protect the community? I have 7 views on today's video. 7. Yep, that's going to creep up to 40, 50, or 60 in the coming months. Do you really think anything I said, even if it weren't true, do you think anything I said is in any danger of crippling the community at YouTube? With 70 views? Really? Just between you and me, I would love the top 20 to get into a place where I could actually hurt the community at YouTube by saying false information. I still wouldn't do it because I don't dabble and I don't play in false information. I talk about stuff that I can prove. I can talk about stuff that's a general consensus. And I talk about stuff that's going on in my life as I understand it. That's all that really is. 4 people. 4 people got to watch that video, the top 20 that got taken down before they took it down. 4. Think I did some real harm to the community standards, to the community that those community standards are supposed to protect? Do you? Do you think the top 20 is some sort of misinformation agent and totally out to just overturn society as we know it? 4 people got to watch it. 4. And I'm pretty sure Jimmy G was one of them before he turned me in. It's going to be really funny if that turns out to be true, but Jimmy... There's no way. I feel like Jimmy would publicly shame me for not understanding how Spider-Man works before he would ever turn me into Google, but... It's probably Annie, actually, if you think about it. Annie makes more sense. I'm going to shut up now because there's really no point in talking since this video is going to get taken down anyway. But let's get back on with the Hard Rock Lunchbox, shall we? As much as YouTube thinks it's a community, it might as well just be a town. A town I hate. My segue game is on point.